Awesome. Great. So I'm really excited to introduce Doreen. I'm not going to say too much about her because she's going to tell us her story as well as give us the story of her mother as well, who was also a Partido member and an amazing leader within the Partido as well. So without further ado, you can go ahead and take it away, Doreen. We're really excited to be here and to learn from you today and to engage in conversations.
All right. Hello. I want to thank you for allowing me and giving me this invitation. I'm going to start out. I'm a little nervous, so excuse me. I'm the daughter of Ernestina Zamora Garcia and Antonio Garcia. My mother was a strong Chicana activist and leader of the Confederación de la Raza Unida. And my father was a union man, ILWU Local 10. He supported and backed up my mother all the way, which allowed for her to do the many things that she did and accomplish. I want to give credit to both my parents, who taught me many lessons about carnalismo. I'm a Black Beret elder, a mother, a wife, and a grandma, a retired Chicana nurse of almost 30 years. I represent the Mujeres de PNLRU, which was founded by my mother in 1970. I'm a Chicana historian of the Black Berets and of the Partido. I was a past member of the Confederación de la Raza Unida, of Community Alert Patrol, MECHA of San Jose State University, SEIU Local 250, SEIU Latino Western Division, and I represent the Partido and the Santa Clara County. I'm going to talk about, because I am a historian, by 1969, Chicanos were tired of all the injustices, just like today. We saw the Vietnam War raging and too many Chicanos were being killed on the front lines. We saw the Chicano moratorium take place, and we all know what happened there. Our women were being sterilized without giving permission at LA General Hospital. Chicano students walked out of high schools across the Southwest, and many of us were dropping out of school. Poverty was severe and it was everywhere, and the mortality and our disease rates were increasing. The UFW formed and our battle cry became La Huelga. Many of us lined up behind La Causa. It was evident that there was no political representation that focused on the needs of our Chicano community. In San Jose, they had this event called La Fiesta de las Rosas, which was celebrated there annually, and it celebrated and commemorated the Spanish conquest. In 1969, the event was picketed by Chicanos because we were mad because they were using taxpayers' monies for this event, which was insulting to our community. While on the east side, many of us lived in poverty and we didn't even have sidewalks. Our communities were poor, we are poor, and we continue to be poor. Out of that blowout, the Confederación de la Raza Unida formed, and they came to include some 70 Chicano organizations within the Santa Clara County. They were all under this massive Chicano civil and human rights umbrella organization. La Raza Unida Party was one of these organizations. Eventually, we became deputized registrants, and we walked the precincts of Sauce Puedes in San Jose. We carried literature about our own political party, and our literature was in English and Spanish. In time, we came to feel our power coming about as more Chicanos were elected to school boards, Chicano superintendents, Chicano teachers and counselors, and we've seen Chicanos on hospital boards. The Partido took off like wildfire, and within years' time, its platform and ideology spread to other Chicano communities like Union City, Hayward, Oakland, and San Francisco. These chapters would unite as a Northern Conference and support one another. In 1970, the Chicanas of the Confederación found a great need to form themselves as the Mujeres de PNLRU. The names of the original members and founders of the Mujeres was Shirley Trevino, Raquel Silva, Elena Minor, Fran Escalante, and Ernestina Garcia. The women came together to form themselves as a group because we wanted to teach each other and learn about the issues so that when we could attend the general meetings with the men and participate. We understood that there existed a triple deprivation against us. One, we were poor and we live with inequities. Two, we are brown and we experience inequality. Three, we are women and we are subjected to sexual discrimination. Some Chicano men didn't understand why did we felt the need to form the Mujeres de Aztlan. They mocked us. They called us names. They told us to go home and take care of the children and be there when they got home. They said that women were not capable to lead our movement, menos our people. At one point, the Mujeres de Aztlan of the Confederación rose up in protest to state the following to these Chicano men. Now, don't get me wrong, because there were, and there are many progressive Chicano men who support the Mujeres and what we stood for. But these, at that time, the Mujeres had to stand up and said this, the following, that the Chicanos are always stating how much there's so much discrimination and exploitation by Anglo society, yet they turn around and do the same to Chicanas. Since the beginning of the Chicano movement, we have supported it. We have always been on the front lines, on the picket lines, and some of us have even been arrested in past confrontations in the struggle to acquire the rights accorded us under the laws of the land. We protest being the housekeepers and the janitors of La Raza. We protest having to wallow in the filth of corruption of Chicanos who degrade us and erect barriers to our progress and growth. We have no education, and agencies cannot conceive a parity of women in employment. We protest because affirmative action gives us a nodding glance and then passes us by. The Chicano movement has been a game for some. Some positions have opened, yet many women do you not see in those positions. Most Chicanas hold menial jobs. We protest the deep macho hang-up because these are the reasons of the Chicanos' belief that men are supposed to be the leaders, the fighters, and protectors. When these macho Chicanos see women stand up for themselves and really contribute, they react by shouting that we were acting like white women in the white women's movement. We protest that when a suggestion is made by a Chicano takes credit for the work and even the pride of the Chicano product without even a thank you. We protest the deliberate exclusion of Chicanas from decision-making boards. Any woman who speaks her mind is considered a threat to Chicanos. We see this and recognize this as just a net of Chicano exploiters, where we are being exploited by our own. We are not the criadas or the maids of the movement, and we will sit at the table of decisions. In 1975, the women of the Partido and of the Confederación went to Mexico City to commemorate Women's International Day. Out of that gathering came resolutions that included that we should be able to participate to the best of our abilities to the struggle for the liberation of our people and for our civil and human rights. We said that no one is more superior than the other. How could we be screaming about liberation when some of our own men refused to accept that we were human beings? It was said that they put us in a box and they refused to let us out, these backward individuals. I have to give credit, though. I don't want to come up like I'm a man hater. I have to give credit to those progressive Chicano brothers who supported the Mujeres de Aztlan in all our efforts, for they deserve to be truly called our brothers. The Mujeres de Aztlan were the shakers and the movers of the Confederación. We were the backbone of our struggle because we know how to struggle. Where it has been known that long before the Europeans came to our shores, indigenous Native women were held in esteem and honor as chief leaders among our own tribes. These chief women participated in making decisions about issues and matters that affected the entire tribal community. Even while the Spaniards were raping our grandmothers, we were seen as a threat. They used their religious beliefs to justify genocide and conquest of our people. They said that our women were evil and they believe that we should be subservient and submissive. They did this to take our power from us, knowing that when they did this, they were also making our men even more powerless. In 2013, the Mujeres de Aztlan of the Black race and the Partido put forth and introduced El Plan de las Mujeres de Aztlan por el Nuevo Ser. This plan can be obtained. It was adopted by the Partido Congreso in 2013. You can get a copy of it if you want. I have a copy of it myself. I can read it if you want me to. I'm hoping to encourage our women and others to get involved in implementing the Partido once again. It's been said that when you educate our women, you educate the whole community. Once our women get going, the whole nation, the whole barrio will move. And we would say back then that the biggest threat to el sistema is a unida familia. Our history proves that we are capable as a people to organize ourselves, to take things to another level once again. Moving forward, I was asked, what do we need to do to get the Partido going again? I would say, I have a few notes here. One is that we have all public literature in English and Spanish. And on our literature, we need to have our mission, our purpose, what our purpose is and why La Raza Unida Party. Our literature includes statistics and demographics about our community. I think the following what I'm going to say, we may need to go to the Office of Voter Registrants of the state of California to find out how many signatures do we need on our petition to assure that La Raza Unida Party is put on the next upcoming election ballot. When I found out years ago, they told me we needed 750,000 signatures for a petition to become a political party here in California. We need to also find out if we have to become deputized registrants to be able to register our people. And we need to also prepare precincts and to be at the supermarkets or events to register our people. So that's where I am with that. I was also asked to talk about my mother. My mother was the sixth child born of 18. My family, my maternal family were farm workers. My mother had only an 8th grade education, but I say she had a PhD in carnalismo and chicanismo, and that's what carried her. She had a big heart. My mother's legacy was that she was a leader of the Confederación de la Raza Unida, and she is known as an East Side legend in San Jose. Her work led to Chicano studies in high schools, to family health clinic services in unserved areas. She was a model that gave us the strength to run for public office at a time there was no representation. So that is where I'm at. I didn't know if you wanted me to read the actual Plan de las Mujeres. I think some of this stuff is important, where we say that the Partido resolves not to separate, but to strengthen and liberate the nation of Aztlan, the family of La Raza. And with the grave responsibility of the formation of Aztlan, the Partido realizes that in order to develop and function as complete human beings, the growth and the participation of women is utmost necessity. Women have historically been repressed as a great potential of strength and knowledge, but we realize that Xicana Mujeres add an additional dimension of leadership. It is through education that we encourage the men and the women of La Raza to develop a full consciousness and awareness of the women to the revolution and the revolution to the woman. Now it's time for us to psychologically free ourselves of the colonized idea that women are inferior beings. It's time for each and one of us to educate ourselves and one another so that we can fully participate and implement the Plan de Aztlan. And the Plan de las Mujeres por el Nuevo Ser is a set of guidelines by which we may more easily acquire even footing with one another as brothers and sisters in the struggle. And keeping the preceding statements in mind, we resolve the following. that all women must participate according to their capabilities on all levels of the struggle, and that she continually engage in studying to raise her ability to critically analyze and progress within the struggle for Aztlan. We encourage Chicanas to meet within their own groups, within their individual chapters, for the purpose of education and discussion. We maintain the self-determination for women in all things, including how they choose to implement their goals of becoming fully functioning human beings within the Chicana movement, and their total participation must be respected within the struggle of La Raza. We call for the change in the concept of the alienated family, where the woman accepts total responsibility for the care and home of the home and the children, to the concept of La Raza as a united family, the basis being brotherhood of La Raza, in which both men and women, young and old, assume the responsibility for the love, care, and the orientation and the education of our children of Aztlan. Community control is self-determination, and for La Raza to decide how we want to live. The changing concept of the family must run through all actions of the areas of community control. We must guarantee that we support each other physically and give spiritual progress within our struggle for Aztlan. And for the purpose and the unity and the direction, all the preceding ideas must be honored, so that both men and women will work consciously through the goal of total liberation for all of our people. We said we believe in breaking the chains of oppression, one link at a time. And that's where I am with all of this. Thank you.
Gracias, hermana Doreen. Thank you for sharing all of that with us. And I know we talked a little bit about, a couple things to share and our time limit kind of for today, but thank you so much for sharing yourself, your familia, La Lucha, everything with us today. I did want to allow our members and our community members here to ask questions. We do know that, Doreen might not have all the answers to solve all our problems that we currently have, but just even questions folks might have about the history, about, even things that she was involved in, or just even questions to get us engaged as a group here in this Zoom session. You can use the hand feature, the raise hand. If you cannot use that feature, you can just go ahead and unmute. Connie?
Yes, I have a couple questions, Doreen. I think I have you on Facebook. My first question is that you in the picture, in the black and white picture, holding a baby?
Yes, that's me.
Okay, I thought so. And then it's finally nice to see like to put a face and a name, and it's such an honor to meet you and be in this room with you. What would you say as a mujer leader to the rest of us here as mujeres, because I get a lot of encouragement from many of my sisters as far as like when men try to shut you down or silence you, what recommendations or what is some advice that you could give us mujeres to encourage us to continue and not get discouraged and feel like we have to, be quiet to make others feel comfortable?
Well, I know back then we used to say that we had to teach our men how to treat us like human beings. We had to teach them how to let go of all those old attitudes. And I know that sometimes it tests your patience. I have to admit that it hasn't been easy. We have to just focus on what we know and empower ourselves as women. Eventually, I think once we get going, the men will follow. I hope I answered your question.
Yes.
You just can't give up. You just got to keep going. I mean, I have had many a discussion where we've been like rams hitting some men in discussion. And eventually, I mean, we can't come away with bad feelings. You know, we have to
Right.
keep it to say that, hey, we're all learning. There's no manual for our movement.
That's
You know,
right.
so we're all learning, and this is sometimes it was like trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and if I stepped on somebody's feet, I would say I'm sorry, and I expected if somebody stepped on my foot that they would say the same.
Okay.
So that's how we try to address it, is that we are teachers and we are students of the movement.
Right. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Mm.
Again, if anyone has questions, you can put them in the chat, you can unmute, or you can raise your hand and we'll go ahead and call on you. I have a question. I went to a conference these last 2 days, and I heard from some of the mujeres as well, from the leaders of the East LA walkouts. And one of the things that was talked about, that I guess I really didn't get a lot of information on, right? Was that there was like also separation between mujeres in the movimiento.
Mm.
And so one thing, I guess, like, I don't want to dwell on like the the inability to unite. I guess in a sense, I would like to hear maybe from your experience, even within the separation or the conflict between mujeres, maybe things that you learned from that, so that we don't repeat those same mistakes as we continue moving forward in an effort to unite, and to band together to fight for our communities and for the liberation of our people.
I think as time went, I understand what you're talking about, because we had the same problem back in the day. As time went, it was more like those that were awake, those that were aware. The whole issue, things, we put out statements, we put out facts, we came together, we sat there and explained to each other the importance of it, and we thought, well, either they pick it up or they don't. And sometimes our women would say, hey, I think you're right, or hey, I didn't look at it that way, or something like that. And sometimes our women eventually would say, I had seen it before, because I remember one lady came out and was saying, why are you guys calling yourself Chicanos? Like that comes from the word chicanery. I mean, we went through all this bullshit with some women, and eventually the same woman came about and did a 383 whatever, turned around and said, hey, you know what, you guys are right, because they turned around, they had an experience where they were discriminated and they needed us. So we came together and they joined us eventually. So in time, I don't worry too much about my sisters that are so progressive or have come along. We need to bring them along, but I'm not too concerned about that. With me, it's more focusing and finding those that think like I do. That those are going to be the ones that are going to be moving. Our sisters will eventually, they will fall. They will come in line with us. That I know, because I've seen it happen. So I'm not too worried about them, too concerned. Once we get going, there's no stopping us.
Yes. Thank you. We did get a question in the chat. The question is, what was your experience like in K through 12? Was it ever contrasting to what you learned about the movimiento at home?
Oh, well, I went to Catholic school for 8 years, elementary school, and we were taught there that we were all children of God. When I went to high school, public school, that's where I really came across discrimination. As there was so many things that were happening. I mean, they had us in low tracking system, in the low vocational classes. I mean, we weren't being no college classes or anything like that. remember an experience where in high school, they put me in a photography class and I didn't want it. I wanted to be a nurse. So I wanted a class that was going to help me in college. And they put me in this class and I didn't want it. And I kept telling my mom I didn't want it. And the counselor won't take me out of it. She was a white counselor. And finally I told my mom, please come with me to go meet with this lady, this counselor. So my mom went. Well, we walked in there and the counselor, I guess she thought my mother didn't speak any English. And she said, please come in to my office and have a seat. And she started telling me, she said, Doreen, could you tell your mother that this photography class would be very good for you because you could learn how to take pictures and you could make some money working in the bars and the cocktail lounges, and that this class would be very good for you. And she went on and on. And finally, and she kept saying, and tell your mother that this would be a good thing for your family. And so finally, I turned and I looked at my mom, who spoke perfect English as well as Spanish. And she stood up and she let this lady have it. She told her, who do you think we are? What kind of people do you think we are that we would allow our daughter to go and do that kind of work? And the lady said, well, but my friend Paquita, she does that and she makes very good money in the bars. Oh, híjole, man, mom was hot. She went off on this lady. I thought that she was going to give that lady a cachetada. But, you know, it was like, oh, God. The lady's face, she was a gringa. Her face turned a bright red. And all of a sudden, mom made a fuss and I stood up. I had never cussed before in front of my mother. And I told the lady, it's a bunch of shit that you're trying to give me. And then my mom stood up and the vice principal came. He said, what's going on? And the counselor said, hey, this lady, Mrs. Garcia, I'm trying to explain to her that this would be good for her daughter. Oh, man. Mom said, you're going to change this class. You're going to change it right now. We're not leaving here until you change it. You do it right this instant. The lady went. She freaked out. They freaked out and they took me out of that class. Well, come to find out that they had Chicanitos that were in my homeroom. They were sending them out. They couldn't speak English. Sending them out to go in the yard and pick up papers. They were doing the janitor's work. And when they would come back, they would the teacher would tell me to tell them in Spanish to go back out there because the class wasn't over and they needed to pick up more papers. Well, mom found out about this too. And then they went at one point, they put in a yearbook at one of the schools where there was a Chicano or a student that was missing. They put a picture of a sleeping Mexican and they put a caption saying, asleep again. Wow, this really ignited Chicanos, man. We went to the school board. There was hundreds of us there as we invited all the Chicano educators from San Jose, from all over to come. And they really blasted the school board. We wanted to form ourselves as a Chicano Student Union and they didn't want to allow us. And we forced it. We pushed the issue. 1969, I remember we walked out because all Chicanos across the Aztlan nation walked out, so we walked out. We walked out a total of 5 times. Students at Chicano Student Union walked out. I mean, eventually, we tried to walk out. The last time we tried to walk out, they expelled me. I ended up suing the Milpitas School District. I got my diploma that way. It was like I only had 1 month to go. They threatened me. They said that I was not going to be able to advance and go into college. The following year, I was in San Jose State. I minored as a Chicano Studies there. Eventually went on to got into becoming a Chicana nurse because I was freaked out when I heard about what they were doing at LA General, where they were sterilizing our women who had babies, and they didn't even tell them they were sterilizing them after they gave birth. They didn't even get their permission for them to do that. They sterilized one mujer, una mexicana, and she was crushed because her and her husband wanted to have more babies. And she didn't even know she was sterilized until 6 weeks later when she went back for her post-op appointment with the doctor, her gynecologist. That's how she found out. They ended up, there were several women that sued the LA General Hospital for that. And that's why I guess that prompted me. It was like, hey, wait a minute. I started looking at, even in the hospitals, we had no translators. We had no interpreters. We couldn't even access the system because everything was in English, so there was mortality rates were outrageous. I remember when I was a student with the Chicano Student Union of Milpitas, San Miguel, we went and we raised money and we took $100 to the United Farm Workers, and we met with Cesar Chavez, who met with us students. We were about 20 of us. He met with us for about 3 hours, which was remarkable. We did some skits to show him about the discrimination that as students that we were experiencing. We went there and gave the United Farm Workers $100 of donation. And then we were all excited. That was, I was really excited. I was tickled to meet Cesar Chavez back then. There was a lot of things as a Black Beret. I mean, I became involved with the Black Berets. And at one point, I could say in the city of San Jose, that the police were terrible with us. I mean, they followed us from park to park. They hounded us, they harassed us. And finally, I mean, it got to where, I was with Community Alert Patrol. And with Community Alert Patrol, we had our shortwave radios. We went around and we would get calls, and we would show up at places where the police were going. And sometimes we showed up there before they did. And we were documenting and witnessing and taping with our tape recorders what they were doing, is because the police there were breaking into family homes without warrants, beating up the whole family. They were abusing people really bad. So we've decided that we needed to patrol the police. So we started doing that. We did that for a while. I have to say that I had to get out of the Community Alert Patrol. I got busted with my sisters, the Mujeres de PNLRU of the Community Alert Patrol. I ended up suing the police department with a grand jury, went to grand jury. I sued them, the police department, because the police couldn't even identify me in the courtroom. So we sued them. And after that, I mean, hey, I couldn't even drive around San Jose. The police would pull my husband over and ask him, where's your wife? Where's your family? So it was like, I had to get out of there. I left San Jose because the police were so bad and rotten. As a Black Beret, we reached out to the other communities. We hooked up. I know I used to go to Oakland and meet up with the autonomous Brown Berets of Oakland. We would do meetings with them. We would do political meetings, sessions. We would do martial arts. We would do, we would do also learn how to do weaponry. And we also lined up and did alliance with the Black Panther Party of Oakland, because we shared the same kinds of problems that they were having and experiencing. And so we hooked up with them, and there were marches that were done from San Jose all the way to Oakland. As a student of Mecha at San Jose State, we had a lot of marches. We marched all the way from San Jose to Sacramento. It took us 6 days to get up there. It was rough. We had the community that would come out and bring us comida, and we slept outside. By the time we got to Sacramento, we were 300 strong, and we were screaming and yelling and saying, fuck Reagan, and we wanted Reagan to come out and talk to us, but he refused to talk to us, so we screamed even louder. Those were the times that, yeah, we were mad, we were angry. I have to admit, I'm a retired Chicana nurse of 30 years. And when I was a nurse, and after all the things that I had seen, I was real angry for a lot of years, because I kind of thought, what happened? We dropped the ball. Like things were moving so good, so quick, so fast, and so strongly. And all of a sudden, the Chicana movement just poof. They used to say, my mother got mad because somebody from Maldives years ago went and said that the Chicana movement was dead. And my mom said, well, who killed it? And how can they even say that? They have no right to be saying that. The Chicana movement lives in us as long as we are alive. And we have this consciousness and awareness inside of us. I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question completely. I can only say that I became aware of what was happening to us when I was in high school. I say probably about 1967. And that's when I had to point out to my mom the things that were going on. My mom grew up in segregated Arizona. She went to segregated schools over there. She said they were different buses that they used to take. She would look over the cyclone fence, and on the white side of the fence, they all had a nice porcelain fountain for them to drink. And on the Raza side of the fence, all we had was a pipe and a faucet that came out of the ground, and that was our drinking water. And so my mother she said she didn't like going to school because of what she saw. And that's why when I brought the quejas to her about what's happening with Chicanos in schools, she really, that lit her up. That got her. And I have to say that I have to give credit to my mother and my parents, because they opened my eyes and they trained me for revolution.
Thank you, hermana. I know we're getting close to the end of time for this morning, but if anybody has any other questions, you can feel free to unmute, put your hand up, or write your question in the chat. I think one thing, I guess, go ahead, Ayala.
I'm sorry, man, and I know, this is the Xicana Caucus, but I just, I wanted to participate. I want to support our sisters with again, and, I'm hearing Doreen say what she's saying is just so powerful, man, It's so powerful, and it angers me that all this history, because I've heard it from my dad, from my tia, from, other people I've been in the movimiento, and all this history that we have of struggle, and resistance, and even people, their lives being taken in the struggle, and we don't hear any of it, any of it. And they totally hide this from us as if we don't exist. But we're like this mass group of people that is rebrowning Aztlan and rebrowning, the rest of North America. But it's like they just want to make it like if we don't exist. And hearing Doreen speak, it makes me so proud, not only to be Chicano, but to be in the Partido, because this is the history of our party, of our organization, of this organization that we as a people, women and men, developed, and we struggled with each other, and we keep struggling with each other, but we developed this party so that we can fight for our interest as a people. It just makes me proud, so proud to hear this. Thank you, Doreen, and thank you, Prima, and Mujeres Chicanas.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, my brother. I appreciate you totally.
Gracias, Prima. Peggy?
Good morning, blessings everyone. This is like beautiful. Much respect. Doreen, have come, and you have always given me guidance for quite some time, and I finally get to see you, and it is much respect. Thank you for sharing everything, and for Mujeres, hey, she stand, that give up and keep, educating. And also you said something very, educating the men, teaching them, to respectfully, the duality, how with us mujeres, because a lot of us sometimes think that they know everything. Don't know how they were raised, graphics, how they were raised, and everything. When they're willing to learn, it becomes powerful. But thank you so much for being here, and it's again, much respect, and thank you for giving me guidance. Gracias.
Thank you, Peggy.
Gracias, Peggy. Vero, I think you were gonna unmute a little while ago.
Yes, I just want to say, piggybacking off of what everybody is saying, that it's an honor, hermana, to hear from you. It's very encouraging. My one question to you would be, you spoke about, people saying that the Chicana movement is dead. And I really like the way that you put it. As long as we are alive, it's not dead, because we will move things forward. And not just for ourselves as individuals, for our familias and for the whole community and all oppressed peoples. My question to you would be, after so many years of being in the struggle, what advice would you give to the rest of us who are in this for the long run? We understand that this is a protracted struggle and a protracted war that has been waged against us. And so what would be your advice for those of us who want to continue growing in the movement and seeking liberation for all of Aztlan?
Well, I can only hear the words of my abuelito, my Papa Chico, who was a Yaqui soldier in the Mexican Revolution. And he used to tell us when I was growing up, he used to say, no se dejen, que nadie nos pisotea. That was the whole thing. That's what drove us all. And it was like something that every time something happens to me, I keep hearing those words, que no se dejan, that we cannot allow for things to continue the way they are, that there has to be a change. And the only change that's going to happen is from within ourselves. No one is going to do it for us. We have to get up there and stand. I don't care how many times, I remember how many times that we had our own leaflets thrown back in our faces, but hey, we just continued going. You can't be discouraged. There are some that are going to pick it up, and there are some that are not going to pick it up. And I focus on those that keep an open mind and are ready to be educated about what is going on.
Muchas gracias, hermana.
Okay, we can take one question. I see Jennifer, you unmuted yourself.
Hi, yeah, I wanted to ask, I feel like a lot of us are imagining that our future, or at least I think that our future needs to be a Black and brown led woman and queer struggle. Like it has to be led by us. And I do feel like there's a lot of unity between us and other races, but I feel like there's still a lot of work to do. And I was just wondering what you would recommend for, I think also maybe like some señoras or señores too, because I feel like a lot of us that come from Mexico or Central America, we do still have those patriarchal ideas pushed, and it's still kind of normalized.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
How could we, as the younger generations, also encourage or help, I guess, the elders, or not even just the elders, because there's people our age that still think like that, but that have those already preconceived racist and patriarchal
I think
ideas.
a lot of us are hung up, on what others say. I think what really is strong is facts. Like I said, demographics, things like our statistics, all of that has to come out. There should be a way that we can say, we know how many of us there are, what are the statistics, how many of us live in poverty, how many of us have no health care, things like that. I think through education is the only way that it's going to be understood and sink in. And also, the younger generation, they need to start picking the brains of the older generation, of the older Chicanos. I mean, I'm telling all my other veteranos, I say, hey, you need to write your story down. I don't care how minute you think it is. It's important. It's part of the Chicano movement. If it inspired you, it will inspire others. So I think our stories need to be told. And people need to know that, hey, you need not be afraid. We need to be fearless. We need to be educated. We need to be smart. And we need to have a strategy. And I think that the Partido is a tool that we can use to also not only get ourselves more powerful, but to educate our people. Another thing, back then in the day, we had the teatros. I was part of the Teatro Urbano under Daniel Valdez was my director. And we went up and down the state giving messages to our community about what was going on with the farm workers, what was going on in the schools, what was happening. And I mean, yeah, there were skits that were funny, but they were ironic and they were profound because they pointed the problems that were going on. And sometimes, you know, through laughter and through humor, we reach each other to prove a point, to make a point, especially to those that don't really understand or aren't so educated. They can feel it when we move through what my mother used to say, expressing carnalismo.
Thank you, Doreen. Peggy? Peggy? No. I was also gonna say to that, I think what Doreen was saying is knowledge is very important. And I think one of the things about that is that I feel like just working in educational systems myself is that a lot of youth have been withheld knowledge. The educational system has purposely withheld historical knowledge of our communities and our people. And a lot of the youth are buying into the knowledge that they're learning in these institutionalized systems, and they're not seeking knowledge outside of that. And I think one thing that I've seen is I've seen a lot of youth say, you know, the elders this and the elders that, and there was no women representation and there was no queer representation, and all these organizations are exclusive, and, all these things. And when we really dive in and, even for me, like joining the Partido and being in a vice chair position, I learned my history about the Partido, and there were leaders that were women before even the women's rights movement, right? But educational systems and the divisiveness that has been created in our communities are going to tell you that Chicano organizations never worked with Black folks. They never worked with women. They never worked with queer folks, right? And this is a lot of misinformation when we have history that shows that the Partido has always been ingrained with the All African People's Party, Revolutionary Party, right? And this is an African-led movement for the people of African descent, Black folks, right? And so it's really interesting, I think, for me, having worked in these institutionalized settings and also learning my own history and seeking my own knowledge through La Razonida, where we have a study group every Wednesday and we learn things together, we dissect things together, we share knowledge together, and we also talk about how do we use this information and this knowledge to continue building in a forward direction and making sure that we're not working in silos, that we're not being divisive, right? And so I think there's a lot of conscious thought that happens in our study group that I wouldn't necessarily say happened in educational settings here through these Western systems, right? And I'm saying that from the lens of, being in these K through 12 systems, going through, state schools, going through a professional degree program. And I will say I've learned more in our study groups with gente, with us discussing things that are actually affecting our people than I have, I think, in these systems teaching me how to write a dissertation based on a template, right? Like, here's the a template, write this, and it'll be good, right? And so that's not the way we're supposed to learn. We're supposed to learn by discussion, by sharing knowledge, by dissecting things and really getting into them, right? And so, I think that that's how we can continue doing that, and how this is where you start, right? I think there's always a starting point, and I think La Razonida is the perfect place to come and to seek this knowledge, because we're willing to share it, right? And that's why I think even for us as mujeres, it's important for us to bring our elders in so that we can learn from them, because the thing is too is that where we were 50, 60 years ago is not where we're at right now, right? And we have to understand the struggles that they faced, because not understanding their struggles is not going to help us move forward. We need to know where we come from. We need to know, the fact that people died, literally died, for us to be able to have a seat in a classroom, for us to be able to go to a restroom in a high school classroom, right? Like, people in our communities, Chicanos, brown folks, they died for us, right? And so I think that's something that we don't talk about that much, and we tend to just forget and move to, the side, right? And there's so many, so many communities that we don't hear about, and that's part of the problem, right? And so I think, as we continue moving forward, as we encourage our mujeres, queer, trans, non-binary, to be part of leadership, to take the reins, right, in our organizations, and that we know that we have these settings right here, like the Xicana Caucus, where we can come together and knowledge share and learn from one another so that we can continue building forward. Peggy, you still have your hand up. Did you want to say something, hermana?
Okay, I wasn't sure. Everything you said, touch on that, and again, just empowering me. Before I joined, the Razonida party, things that's not right, that's wrong, but I didn't know how to communicate it to our people, and and it's so important. I joined the Razonida party, the women, all of you have been, and the men too, but now that we're doing this, and everyone, this is a lot of us will, and we need this space. Doreen, Vanessa, when we talked about it, in Denver, I didn't even know about the women in the part, just empowering, and also to, just say that as women, because a lot of us, we don't know how to speak out, and it's good so we can encourage and educate, the future hermanas going to be coming, to the Partido. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, hermana. I know we're past the time already, but I want to first and foremost thank Doreen for joining us today, and for planning, all this time. We had a couple conversations, and I know she had been planning, what she was gonna speak with us about, and really preparing herself. And thank you so much, hermana, for just sharing the space with us, sharing yourself and your history and your familia's legacy, and everything that your familia has done for us, for all of us, and for being a leader within the Partido, a mujer, a leader that, maybe, back then we didn't use those labels, right? Because no queríamos ser muy, or whatever, right? Like, in our communities, we're told as women to just, kind of, keep it moving. Don't, stay humble. Don't say too much about ourselves, but you're a leader. And I really hope that you own that title of leader in our movimiento, and that the mujeres here in this space can see themselves as leaders as well, and they take ownership of that, and want to be in positions, want to serve on committees, and want to continue the forward movement for our communities, for the liberation of our communities and ourselves as gente. And it's such an honor to have you. And I hope that, you'll continue joining us for these meetings, because I think it's so important that, we continue learning together. If we don't continue learning together, we lose a piece of ourselves. And so we want to make sure that we're building in that way, and that we're serving our communities and our raza the way that they should be rightfully served and supported. And so thank you so much, Doreen. Thank you so much, hermanas, siblings, everybody that joined us today. I hope that you continue joining us. I have everybody's emails, so everybody will be receiving an email about future meetings as well. But que viva la mujer, que viva la chicana,
Que
que
viva.
viva la
Thank you.
raza,
Que viva.
Thank
que
you to
viva
my
la raza
brothers and my
unida.
sisters.
Viva.
Que viva.
Que
A
viva.
todas. Remember, no se dejan.